Alright, on step 9 you're going to need, with 4 sprues, you're going to need parts off of your 2 A sprues, which would be the pad of the foot there. And then you'll need your B and your C foot. Again, this is where it's right, left. There are some differences, I guess, in the way things sit because of the different sides. So again, for my purposes, C is my left side and B is my right. And I'm just going to cut those parts off and we'll be right back. Okay, now we're moving on to step 9, which is the foot. And you'll need these four pieces here. Now the first thing you're going to do is the front of the foot. Now what you want to be careful of here is you don't want to get glue on this pivot point here, and that'll get trapped in when you put these two pieces together. The pivot will get trapped in between there. So you can glue this piece to here, just don't get any glue in the back around the pivot, otherwise the foot will not move. So the first piece just kind of lays over like that. Just snap them together. And it should be good to go. If you notice, I actually went and tacked on these parts here just because for the sake of doing the rest of this assembly tutorial, it's easier if they're in place. So here I'm just holding this together, but you'll see that the foot moves up and down, and that's what you want it to do. Now the pad of the foot, you'll notice there's a little tabs, and they're closer to one side. That's the side you want facing towards the front. And this actually just snaps in place, so you wouldn't have to glue that. You could certainly add a drop of glue in the back if you wanted, but it doesn't appear necessary, at least here at this point. And then on the back, this is where you have those two little pieces that went on this back pivot point. So I'll do this way so you can see it. Put these back on. Now these, you do not want these glued to the pivot. And the way this works is they'll slide into the, well, maybe it'll be easier if I turn it this way. So make sure that it's facing in the right direction, and you'll see that they'll slide into the back heel here, like so, and then that will provide the pivot. So where you want to glue here is on the outside face of these pieces. Do not get it on the inside. And then when you do that, when you slide it in here, they will adhere to the heel and allow you to. It's a little tricky trying to do this and do it on camera at the same time, so bear with me. So yeah, you'd have your pieces like that, get the glue on the outside faces, then slide it in, and once it dries, you'll be all set. So that's the left side foot. Now when I'm saying left, I should probably just clarify, I'm looking at it from the back. So this is the left side, looking at it from the back. So I just want to clarify that, as I know some people may be like, well, that's the right foot. Well, if you look at it from the front, it would be the right. But I'm looking at this from the rear, so that would be the left foot. And then the other foot is, again, more of same, just in the opposite. Put that piece in there, drop in the insert, squeeze it together, and it'll catch. And again, I'll go back later and I'll be putting glue on that. Put the pad of the foot in on the bottom here with the little tabs with the short end facing the front. Then on the back, put your two pieces of the heel on. And at this point you would put the glue on the outside face of this, slide it in there, and you've now got your two legs. Now what I'm going to do here is you know what, I can just glue it now since we're here. Now for these, what you want to use is you want to use the testers, plastic cement. Don't want to use, I mean, you could use super glue, but it's probably not as good of a solid connection as you would get if you use this here. So yeah, using the cement. Just gotta open this one as I haven't used it before. Now on this, I'm only going to apply it to these flat surfaces on the front. Again, staying away from the pivot point there, because you get any glue in there and then you lose all of the benefits of having the pivot there to begin with. Just put a little here and on the sides. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot. And drop this over the front. Make sure it's all together. Now what I'm going to do is, I have these little, you can sit there and you can hold it for a period of time. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clamp this. These are really useful if you can get hold of these. And that'll hold that in place so I can work on the heels, on the heel piece. And on the heel piece here, again, all we're going to do is put drop glue on the outside face. Knew that was going to happen. And now we get to the part where we get glue on our fingers. Awesome. Glue on our mat. Yeah. So, all right, we get it on the two outside faces of the heel pieces, then line it up, slide them in place, and you should it's fighting me. There we go. So then I'm going to let that sit like that for a bit. And then while that's working, we'll do the same on the other side. I'm just putting it on some of the flat surfaces here that will make contact with the top piece. Push that in. Again, you can opt to hold it for a few minutes, or if you happen to have clamps, you could use rubber bands too to hold this together while you do other things. Then on the back, we'll just pull the heel off here. Get our pieces in place and try to do this one a little neater. So we got a couple drops there. Line these up. You knew that was going to happen, right? So let's try this again. Part of building models is at some point gluing your fingers to either together or to the model. So again, just if you deal with this, just again making sure that you don't get the glue on the pivot. So that's our other leg, and if you do happen to get a little glue on something, wipe it off. So these two legs are going to dry. We'll give them a few minutes to dry, and then move on to step 10, which is putting the armor plating on each of the legs. So I'm going to snip those off the sprues, clean them up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so step 10, this is adding armor to the front of the leg, and you'll need these two pieces here off your A sprue, and you'll need one of these off the C sprue and one off the B sprue. And again, for my purposes, C is going to be the left side leg as viewed from the back of the Leviathan, and the B will be the right side as viewed from the rear. So the first piece we have is this small piece of metal there's a slot for it right there, so it's very easy to figure out where that goes. Then you have this here, I guess you call it the knee joint, and you'll see there's already a divot there and a matching hole in the back, so that's pretty easy to line up. So you just glue that there, and then you have this little I guess it's an ankle piece, and you'll see that on the inside of the ankle there's these little depressions. You'll see that they'll match up with, there's a little lip there on both sides. So this will, once this is in place, it goes this direction and then just slides over in like that at kind of an angle, and then that would be your completed step 10. Now I'm just going to go through, glue these for both legs, and move on to the next step. Now you could use either, as long as it's liquid cement, you can use either the regular orange tube of the testers. I like using the black tube here because it's thinner and gets everywhere. It's not as thick as the orange, so I just find it works easier. Now this one, you want the 4 rivets facing up, so you just put that in there, drop it in place, and let it dry. Now for the next piece, I'm just going to put glue in the hole here and just around it. Again, you don't want to get glue on the sides here because you'll interfere with the movement of the knee there. So just try to keep it on the center line. Drop that in place. I just want to make sure I'm not getting it in the middle or on those joints there. Just don't want to interfere with my knee moving. Okay, and then on the remaining piece, I'm just going to put a dab on each of these tabs here. And we'll line that up and should be good to go. We'll let that dry, and while that's drying we'll move on to the right leg and do the same thing. was back to talking about the glue. This is for me actually the first time I've gone back to, back in the day when I was a kid, I used to use the testers for building race cars and rockets and stuff, but in my miniature wargaming, this is the first time I've actually used it, as most everything else uses most everything else uses super glue. And again, I'm sure you could probably use it on here, but the creator of the model said that this would be the better glue to use. He said that the super glue would give you a more inferior bond, so he knows much more about the materials than I do, so I will take his word for it. And so I'm using the model cement. And of course, anytime you're using some type of an adhesive, whether it's this or super glue, make sure you're in a pretty well ventilated area. Getting over my cold, which I swear I've had this cough for 2 months. It's the last piece of it, and get those fumes from the super glue. It gets that tickle in my throat, so apologize for the coughing. So that would be our other leg done with the armor. So next will be steps 11 and 12, which are pretty much identical, except there step 11 is doing your left and your step 12 is doing the right leg, putting the rest of the armor on. Now, I could be mistaken, but I believe this the other model coming out later is the Mortis, and I believe the Mortis, this is how the legs look. It doesn't have the additional armor plating on it, if I recall correctly. So I guess if you wanted to, you could leave the armor off. You could skip 11 and 12 if you like the more skeletal frame look. But since this is about a Crusader, I will build it as a Crusader, and we'll throw the extra armor bits on there. So I'm going to cut those off the sprues now, and when I get back, we'll do steps 11 and 12.